Welcome to the latest episode of Ellison's Connects. I am Steve Stratton, I'm solicitor and partner in the injury services team at Ellison's, and I'm here today joined by
Bernice, Spurgeon, legal director and chartered legal executive.
And today we are talking about something that's often misunderstood and in our eyes unfairly judged: personal injury claims.
So what do people tend to think of when they hear the term personal injury, Steve?
I think, in my view, it's got a pretty bad rap. I'd say most people that hear that term will think about ambulance chasing or dodgy whiplash claims, and generally there's a bit of a stigma attached to making claims. I think there is a common myth almost that there's a claims culture, and anyone who would dare to make a claim is trying it on, I guess. We know differently from the work we do and the people we help, and anyone who's been involved in an accident or anyone who knows someone who's been involved in trauma knows otherwise. So today we're hoping to talk about the truth of personal injury claims and what clients go through. Bernice, you can explain a bit about what we're going to cover today.
Yeah, we're going to cover what happens when you make a claim, how to make sure that you've got all of the information that you need to make sure that you speak to the appropriate qualified solicitors so that you get a good solicitor from the outset. And we're going to look at it not just from the legal perspective, but also from the human side, and what purpose of treatment can have on your recovery and how important that is for the long-term prognosis. And I know what that's been like, as I've been involved in a serious car accident myself where I broke my back with myself and the rest of my family. So seeing it from the human side is certainly something I can comment on.
Yeah, so if you're comfortable doing so, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, I'm quite a private person, and it has taken me quite a while to be brave enough, if you like, to talk about this, because I'm not really one to talk about things like this. But we were on holiday. I was with my husband and two sons at the time who were in primary school. We'd had a lovely day out, and we were driving along a road going back to our holiday home when a car was coming in the opposite direction on the wrong side of the road at speed, and hit our vehicle at great force, causing our car to overturn, and we ended up stuck in the grass verge, which was like a very heavy, deep ditch. I can honestly say that you can see it's going to happen when you have an accident. Not everybody is like that, I know that. But you have no option. There's nowhere to go. My husband shouted, I think they're going to hit us, and feels that he was the driver, so he could have done something else. But we know there really wasn't anywhere else for us to go. So the car overturned, and we were all trapped in the car. We all quickly came to. I don't know how long we lost consciousness for. It seems like a brief moment, and I honestly don't know if you lose consciousness. It's just that moment where something traumatic has happened and your body just takes over. And my husband crawled into the back to try and get our two sons out. And because the car was on its side, he's pushing the door right up into the sky, so it's so heavy. He was using his head, and I was just moaning in pain because I knew I'd done something bad. I had a lot of pain in my back. So he managed to get the boys out and try and stay as calm as possible for them, because they obviously we didn't want to upset them. And they stayed with passers-by from neighbouring houses while my husband came back to try and get me out. I had to try and crawl into the back, and I couldn't crawl in the back. The force of the impact had caused my shoes to fly off. I couldn't crawl because I had so much pain in my back. And he said, we've got to get out. We've got to get out. The car isn't safe. And then the car filled up with smoke. And I honestly thought that the car was going to explode.
Yeah.
So I said to my husband, "You've got to get out. The children are young. They need a parent. I'll stay here and you go with them." So I kissed them goodbye, and
Oh gosh.
and then before I knew it, the fire brigade were there, and I had a big, heavy, large fireman coming in with a spinal board to get me out, cut things off the car to get me out, and I was lifted vertically out of the car into the ambulance. And the one memory I have of that scene was seeing my two small children, and a neighbour had wrapped a cardigan around my youngest one, who was only 6 at the time. And he that's the funny side of it. He remembers that, and he said, "I didn't want that old cardigan wrapped around me," and it just brought lightness to it. But I remember seeing the defendant in her car, and she just had her head in her hands. Obviously knew what she'd done was terrible, because she could see what had happened to our car. And I was taken to hospital. I'd broken my back. I had to be transferred to 3 different hospitals because they needed to find a spinal consultant to operate on me. And because a piece of bone had chipped off, which they explained to me, it meant I couldn't move. So I laid flat, wasn't even allowed a pillow, and just had to be turned every so often by nurses and doctors so that the muscles keep moving in your body and the blood's flowing. Because our car had been written off, we were miles and miles away from home. So my husband, every time I was taken further to a different hospital, it was further away. So I was quite lonely. I didn't really have many visitors at the time. And it was a very worrying time. And I think not only just the physical element, which for me, I did have other injuries. I had fractured ribs. I was in intensive care, and I was in hospital for 2 weeks. And I knew I'd have a really long road ahead of me for rehabilitation. But it was also the psychological impact. I thought, as I'm a personal injury lawyer, I can deal with this. It's not going to affect me in any way. But the nightmares and flashbacks I had was awful in hospital, because you're told you may not walk again. The surgeon came to see me and said, "I'm going to do my best for you, but you might not walk again." So you've got nothing else to think about other than what happened to you, processing what happened psychologically, and knowing what you've got ahead of you. So I came out of hospital after 2 weeks, and was in a back brace for 3 months, which was a heavy plaster of Paris type, made to measure. So it was very, very tight, and I had to wear that all day. Wasn't allowed to sit for more than 20 minutes, wasn't allowed to lay down for very long. Everything was a very slow process. But what made it so important for me was that it isn't about compensation. That's what lots of people think a claim's about. It's about getting the right treatment, not just physically, but also psychologically, and knowing that you are going to get better, but you're going to have a long road ahead of you. So I now say to my clients, I can talk to you about what counselling is like, because I've had it myself. Lots of people have the stigma that there's nothing wrong with them, they've had a physical injury, and mental health just takes a back seat. But the counselling for me was key, because it helps you to process the trauma. I could never talk about being trapped in the car before. I still get a bit emotional about it now, but I couldn't even talk to anyone about it without sobbing. Because you think, life's going to change. But I've got metal rods and screws in my back. I've had to adapt my life. I still have pain, but some days are better than others. And what's important, and what I learned from counselling, was just look forward, don't look back. Don't draw a line in your life and say, I want to be that person I was before, because sometimes it's just not possible. And if clients really struggle with accepting what's happened to them, feeling very vulnerable, worrying about their job because they don't know how much time they're going to have off work, financial problems, and getting the treatment on the NHS is obviously, as we know, takes forever. So the key parts of a claim is to make sure that we get the rehab in place as soon as possible, because if you can get the rehab in place, the long-term prognosis is so much better. And
would you say that, having been through that, I mean, especially what you're saying about the psychological side of things, does it help you help your clients, not having
I think I was always
empathetic?
I've done personal injury claimant work for the whole of my career. I've always had that kindness side to me, but seeing that I went through it myself, you can understand why clients sometimes get frustrated with you because things aren't moving as quickly as perhaps they'd like. How important interim payments are at the beginning to help ease that financial strain, because there's nothing worse than trying to get over a serious injury and having the financial worries as well. And I think I've built up a really good rapport with all of my clients. I don't tell all of them because I don't want to burden them with my issues, but where a client's unsure. Last week I was talking to a client who said, well, you've arranged for me to have some counselling, but what's it really going to do for me?
Yeah, I've had that.
And I can talk them through that, and I can say that, you know, you will come out of this better, but give it a try. If you don't think it's for you, counselling isn't for everyone, but if you don't think it's for you, then you know, you don't have to have it, but just go and give it a try. And every client I've said that to has come out and said, I really benefited from that. So I think it's really key.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, I think the majority of clients that we end up helping with psychological treatment do benefit from it. There aren't many that go along and say, well, that was a waste of time. Okay. And having been through that, I mean, what you've said earlier about being able to empathise even more with the clients from that experience, does it also help you in trying to describe to the client what the process will involve?
Yes, and I think lots of clients think that this process is going to happen very quickly. They're going to get compensation very quickly. And what I always say to clients is, how long a claim takes is down to individual you. It's how long it takes you as an individual to recover, because you only get one chance at compensation. We want to make sure that when we put forward your claim for compensation, we're putting forward not just the past losses, not just your injury, but also what the future holds, because you want to make sure that you're not going to be left in a vulnerable position years down the line, particularly when you've got permanent injury. So is it going to impact on your job, and is it going to impact on, if you lose your job, are you going to be able to find another job? Are you going to be disadvantaged? So I think it makes sure that the client is aware how a claim works, that they don't keep going on at you about, this is taking a very long time, how much longer is this going to take? And emphasising to them, it isn't just about the money, because money can't buy you health. I you know, every client I speak to just wants their health back. Or they've suffered a fatality in the family because of an accident. You can't bring them back what they want. So you are limited, but you will work tirelessly to make sure you get them the best outcome, and that's what we do here at Ellison's. We really do try everything we can to get the maximum from them.
So can you just help people watching, listening, to understand a bit more about what the process, the personal injury claims process, actually looks like?
So initially you'll obviously have had an accident. We want to make sure that you instruct a solicitor as early as possible. You do have 3 years from the date of the claim to bring an accident claim, but obviously it's better because if it's soon after the accident, there's witness evidence that can be available, police reports we need to obtain for liability, photographs of the scene, photographs of the injuries, which is also really, really helpful to look at extent of injuries, scarring, bruising. And we'll initially speak to someone in our team. We'll speak to them, take initial inquiries, and then it will be handed to a senior member of staff, which is usually you, Steve. And you will then have the difficult job of risk assessing each case and seeing whether we think that we can take the case on for the client. And then it will be sent to one of the team, depending on the severity of the injury, whether it will come to you or me or to someone more junior in the team. And we will then talk you through what will happen, what the next stage is. So once we've got all the evidence together, we will then obviously instruct the defendant's insurers, and we will request an admission of liability, and then we'll know whether or not liability is going to be admitted or disputed. Obviously, if it's disputed, then we might need more evidence and more disclosure documents. And when the recovery is at the stage where we think that the consultant or medical expert will be able to provide a prognosis, then we will instruct and obtain all your medical records, have a look at your past medical history, and talk you through what will happen at the appointment with the independent consultant who's going to prepare a report for the claim.
Yeah, and that's a lot of information that you've just gone through there that we do have to kind of go through with people when they first contact us, which is difficult because often they've been through something really difficult, really traumatic. They're trying to figure out where to go, what to do, and we're having to chuck a lot of information at them, make sure they understand as best they can, assuming they're able, they have capacity to understand, which they don't always. And I think on top of that, we're also having to deal with often the stigma that comes that's attached to it, and people feel when they contact us that they're doing something wrong by even thinking about making a claim. And I was thinking about this recently, and I posted about it on LinkedIn recently, that if people have damage to their property that's caused by someone else, wouldn't think twice about making, if it's your car or someone crashes into your house, you're going to claim off your insurance, aren't you, for that to be made right. And yet when people have that done to their own bodies, they feel bad about it, which it's far more important, your health, physical, psychological. So I wish there was something we could do to kind of remove that stigma, but it's come from so many different places over the years. And I think the association, or the way people feel about the word claim seems to prevent people from coming forward. But lot to do. I just think there's more out there that should contact lawyers, that should be trying to seek the justice they deserve after something has happened to them that shouldn't have happened. And I think then on top of that, they've got the fact that or the preconception that it's quite a confrontational process. So they're scared. Firstly, they've got lawyers to deal with. That can be scary, especially if they've never dealt with lawyers before. Then they've got to present a claim. Sometimes it might be against their employer or someone they know. That can be pretty off-putting. And I'm not saying this doesn't happen, but then they're thinking this could be a big kind of fought, litigated case that ends up at court, and that's all pretty scary stuff for them to have to get their head around after something so horrible. And we're in that initial contact, in that initial phase, trying to cover that as well, and just explain to them that firstly, we're not scary. That we're here to help.
Making them feel at ease.
That we're not going to be, charging them up front, sending them bills for anything. And that we can, if it's not a case we can take on because we don't think there's a strong enough case, we can still signpost them to relevant places that can help provide treatment or support. And if it is a case we can take on, then we're pretty confident that we'll do a good job, and we'll be able to help them with interim payments, with early treatment, and ultimately, trying to get things back on track. As like you said earlier, that we can't turn the clock back. No, we can't make it as if the accident never happened. And money never will do that, but
no.
We'll
Clients will never forget the day their accident happened, or the day they had their operation. I remember it like, it's an anniversary, like a birthday, and except it's not a very nice day. Yeah. But as long as you can talk to your solicitor and open up and build up a good rapport with them and trust, that is what's so important, to make sure that you can just speak to them about anything. And I think we do that really well at Ellison's. We're a small team, but we always give all our clients 110% and give them that personal touch that they need and the trust that they need to build up. And we've spoken to lots of clients who get very upset when the claim's over. Yeah. And I had a joint settlement meeting, I remember, where one client, we settled, we got a really good outcome. The barrister was there and said, "This is an amazing outcome, it's brilliant." And the client just sat there sobbing. And his wife said, "Oh, what's happened? What's wrong?" And we were worried he wasn't happy with the settlement. And he said, "I'm not going to be able to speak to Bernice anymore. And she has been my lifeline through this." And the claim took quite a few years. But you do see them at their lowest point. Yeah. And then you see them at the end. Yeah. and the recovery that they've made. And yes, not all of our clients are going to be able to return to normality or return to the job that they've done before, but it's so rewarding to see them at the end, isn't it? I miss them. I do miss them. Do you miss yours?
It can be quite bittersweet, kind of, because after they've been through that ordeal, they've kind of known us ever since, up until the point the case concludes. So that can often be 3, 4, 5 years. So we've become a part of that part of their life, or that period of their life. And you get to the conclusion, and it's great because you've got them treatment, you've got them damages, you've tried to help set them up as best you can for them to then move on, but then you're having to kind of let them go, aren't you? And hope for the best and hope that they do continue on the kind of trajectory you set them on. But it's a weird feeling.
I always get to the end and I'm so happy with the outcome.
Yeah.
But also you do feel that little bit of, I'm not going to be talking to them. And some clients, they ring you more than once a week, don't they? They ring you quite frequently for lots of support. And you're always there for them. And when they disappear, another new client will come along. There's always another one to replace. But
have you got any particular cases you're thinking of?
Well, I had a client who suffered a brain injury when he fell from a roof of a building due to someone else's negligence while he was at work, and he landed on his head as he fell onto concrete flooring. I built up a great rapport with him. He's got his life back on track. He's building a life for himself, but he's adapted his life. And it was so nice to see him on that journey, because to see what he came in like, to see how he leaves was just amazing. Have you got any that you remember?
I mean, a recent one is involved a spinal cord injury for a guy who'd been injured at work, essentially. Accident just should never have happened, and fortunately the company admitted that straight away, so we didn't have a fight on liability. But there was loads of treatment to sort, loads of interim payments to try and keep him, going through a very difficult time. I think the biggest result on that was pushing the defendant insurer to fund a kind of state-of-the-art neuromodulator through one of the top guys in the country who fitted the device, because the insurer didn't want to do it. They didn't think it would work, because it is still, pretty experimental. It's not always beneficial. It doesn't always yield results, but this, in our view, he was a perfect candidate for it, and the surgeon agreed. And through the court process, we did get that funding, and he had it, and it was amazing. I remember him ringing me up. I don't think it was the day he had it, I think the next day, and he just said, it's just changed my life overnight. He woke up from the procedure, and immediately all of the pain, because the spinal cord injury had, as you know, caused symptoms in lots of other places. So all of the pain that he'd been having constantly since the accident, and had just, he said probably 1, 2 out of 10 instead of 9, 10 out of 10.
That's amazing.
And so we kind of, through the claims process, the settlement, the final settlement figure had to include making sure that device was going to be replaced when it was needed, and throughout the course of his life, so that he would effectively be without that pain. And he changed. His personality kind of changed with it, because he'd got so used to living with this pain. You
get pain every day. It takes over some days.
Yeah, and he was just a different guy. He still had other issues and other limitations, but I think it helped him so much psychologically as well, because he could actually start seeing past the pain. And we had a big settlement meeting last year, and similar kind of outcome, and one very happy client, and it was a similar situation with, having helped him for 4 years or so, and then it's kind of like, see you later.
Yeah.
Hope you have a good life, and hope that you never need my help again.
Yeah, that's
And,
what you say. You'd like them to come back, but you don't really want them to come back. But then they do instruct us in other departments then, because then by that time they've got their compensation, and it's time to look at their lives, isn't it? And say, do I need a will? Am I going to move house? Who can I trust in this? And we really try hard, don't we, to do that?
And it's servicing the whole family, because you get to know the family as well. It's a partner or adult children that they might have, or as part of the claims process, we're often needing to take witness statements from everyone who supported the claimant, and that can be a very
difficult
emotional process. Going back, because you're having to take them back through everything that's happened, and but it can be a good process as well, and that it's they can see how far they've come by going through that timeline.
I think lots of clients worry, though, don't they, that they're going to end up with their case going to court. And we used to find that there was more cases going to court, but nowadays I would say hardly any ever actually get there. You might go through the process and get your trial date listed, but there's so many steps before then. And that's one of the stigmas I think that clients do talk about. Is like, well, am I going to have to go to court? I can't give evidence. Which worries them, which is understandable. But
and I mean, we sometimes have to start court proceedings because of the limitation, the time deadline that's placed on these kind of cases, or for other reasons. But actually getting to a point where the client has to go to court for a trial is hardly ever happens. I can't actually think of the last one.
No, I know. Joint settlement meetings, though, are something that we put in before the trial, and we give ourselves enough time, so we've got all the evidence together. The defendants have got all their evidence together, and then it's like a round the table discussion. And clients always worry that they're going to then meet the defendant again, which of course doesn't happen.
No,
because you always deal with the insurers and the solicitors, so they don't have to go through that. But some clients want to have their day in court, but it's not needed. There's no point to it, really, is there?
No, I mean, that can be a difficult conversation sometimes, can't it? When they feel,
will I get more if the judge gives me more? It's like, no, not really.
No, and when a lot of cases, defendant insurance companies are actually quite reasonable, and there's a lot of risk to them too in taking the case to trial. So you quite often get reasonable offers in, or can negotiate and end up with a reasonable offer. And sometimes some clients will still want to go to court, and we can't justify it if there's a good offer on the table. So that's where our legal advice comes in, our experience comes in, and ultimately we have to have that frank discussion with clients that the terms on which we're acting means that they are kind of bound by our legal advice, really, because that's how no win, no fee representation works. We share the risk with them. We don't charge them anything up front. We don't get paid if we lose, but they get the benefit of all our experience and expertise in trying to get the best outcome for them.
I think clients do worry, don't they, if they've had an accident, they're very vulnerable, they've been injured seriously, they can't work, they don't know if they're going to get paid. They then think, well, how much have I got to pay you up front for you to take my claim on? And it's really important. We say, well, you don't pay us up front, you only pay us if you win. So that's why we risk assess every case, isn't it, to see if we think we're going to have reasonable prospects of success. And it's quite hard at the beginning to assess that, but you just have to keep that ongoing risk assessment going when disclosure documents come in, to make sure if liability is in dispute that you still think there are reasonable prospects.
So are there any types of case that we don't take on or can't help with?
I mean, there are. Sometimes people just have a pure accident and there's no one to blame. And when you dig down deeper into it, you have to say to them, well, who do you think's to blame for this accident? And sometimes I've had clients say, myself. You can't sue yourself.
Not clients, inquirers.
Oh, inquirers, they're not
you didn't
clients.
Take them on, did you?
No, we definitely didn't. I remember I had one where there was a person working in a school as a cleaner, and her job was to use Henry the Hoover every evening, and she'd injured herself, fallen over, broken her wrist. It was quite a bad way, and I went to see her and said, well, how did the accident happen? And she said, well, it happened in a school. There's been I was cleaning, and I was using Henry the Hoover, and I tripped over the lead. So I said, "So you were in charge of the Hoover?" "Yes." "Who do you think was to blame for this accident then?" "Well, Henry." So I said, "Well, who do you want to sue then?" And she said, "Well, Henry." I was like, you can't sue a Hoover." So it's something that's always stuck with me. But
I'm sure someone's tried.
But I think clients do sometimes forget that sometimes accidents can just happen. There isn't always someone's negligence, and we can only help them if there is a defendant who's liable, but also a defendant that has the means to pay. Because obviously if someone doesn't have insurance, we do get quite a lot of cases sometimes with, I'm thinking dog bites really, where the owner doesn't have insurance and the owner doesn't have any money. So you can't sue somebody despite how awful the injury could be. You can't sue somebody if they have no means to pay you. So it's quite hard sometimes to talk clients through that. And we talk to all of them, don't we? We have a lot of inquiries. And we can't help everybody, unfortunately, because sometimes there just is no prospects. Or...
No, and that's what I think actually. We kind of provide this. I'm going to sound like I'm after sympathy here, but we kind of provide this free public service because we, the vast majority of calls we deal with, we don't take on.
No.
The vast majority. So we're offering this kind of triage largely telephone service, sometimes in person if they come in. Whereby we're having a half an hour, sometimes longer, chat with them about what they've been through, and there's absolutely no case there at all. There's no, I mean, that's probably the minority. Most of them, there's potentially a case, but it's just not strong enough. But we're kind of acting as a filter, really, stopping those kind of cases that are never going to succeed or get anywhere entering into the system. Stopping people from having that kind of false hope that they might get some compensation.
That's the thing, isn't it? We don't want to give people false hope if there's no way.
And kind of giving them a view on a general view. We can't really give legal advice, but by not being able to offer representation for their case, we're kind of letting them know that it's not a case that would succeed at court.
They can then go and speak to some other solicitors. Every solicitor will have their own risk assessment that they'll do on each case. And I think we do that really well.
But I think what we're seeming to find more and more of is that because there aren't that many kind of local specialist teams doing this anymore, so lots of the inquiries that are being made by people, they're just getting kind of very short and sharp responses saying can't help you. That there's no kind of detailed discussion or conversation or kind of real interest in their claim, unless they can see straight away that it's a strong claim and it's potentially worth a lot of money. So a lot of I'm just talking about really the fact that I don't think there's a lot of options out there for people in this region who want to instruct a local specialist.
And it is better to instruct local, because you can go to the scene of the accident, you can go and visit them at their home if they're not well enough to travel. Some clients have significant injuries where they can't drive, and so they're worried about how they're going to get to see you. And one of the good things that came out of COVID, I suppose, is all of the technology so that we can now have Teams and we can video and see people on the screen. It isn't just having that face-to-face meeting, and some clients prefer that, which is fine. We offer lots of different ways of speaking to people, don't we? Yeah,
and we know the top case managers that help with rehab, that in turn know the best rehab treatment providers in this region. We know the top medical expert witnesses that have the best experience and best place to examine and report on different types of injuries for different clients. I think we're just seeing that the result of probably what's going on in the wider kind of legal picture as far as the industry is concerned is a lot of mergers, amalgamation, so actually less choice for the clients or the people that have suffered from accidents out there, and we're trying to make sure we can give everyone the time they need, whether we turn them away, whether we take them on. We want to give them the time they need to find out if they can be legally
and with
represented.
Ellison's offices, we've got them all the way from Chelmsford, London, Bury St Edmunds, Ipswich,
Norwich
Colchester,
as well,
Norwich. Now our new office in Norwich.
Yeah.
So we've got lots of local people we've helped in Essex, Suffolk, and hopefully Norwich going forward. But
yeah. So what would your key advice be for listeners about what to do if they have had an accident?
I would say speak to a local specialist personal injury solicitor who don't just do a Google search and pick the top one. I mean, you've just got to do your research. If you want somebody to represent you that knows the area and you can build trust in, then go to somebody that you can build up that rapport with. Know that the first appointment you have with them, you're not going to be charged for, you're not going to get a bill, because sometimes it can go on longer than, the 30 minutes, can't it? It can go on for quite some time sometimes. And everything you say to us is confidential. Lots of people worry, particularly, I think, accidents at work where they're still working there. There's that stigma of, I can't make a claim till I leave, which I think you've got to try and reassure the client that, they do have employment rights and we do have an employment team that can assist them. There are other signpostings that we can do to help people. But also, I think at the outset, there is a lot that we tell clients, don't we, when they first speak to us. And I just make it really important to keep receipts, take photographs, make sure you get the details of the defendant. If you're in a road traffic accident, get the vehicle registration, see if there are any witnesses. Try and build up that case, if you like, because it makes it much easier for us. If all of that work is done at the beginning, try and get details of the police officer, see if you can get the police report, because things like that do take a long time, and it's hard for us to start work if we need a police report and we just can't get it.
I think evidence gathering is a huge thing at the start, isn't it? So again, that's a reason I think to instruct a local lawyer would be, because if the accident has happened in a location that your lawyer can get to get that evidence, take photos, take videos, then that could be crucial to the case, because we've both had cases that have turned on one piece of evidence, and and they can be huge cases, and you think, wow, if we hadn't have gotten that piece of evidence, we wouldn't have got here.
I also find with my I think we both do it with people that are injured severely, is keep a pain diary, and that's the one thing I would recommend from my own experience. I was a bit sceptical about, do I really want to write something in my diary every day about how I'm feeling? But actually, when you're going through a serious injury and you're going through a recovery period that is countless appointments, one after the other, it can all get a bit overwhelming. And it's hard when you're going through a serious injury recovery yourself to actually think that you've improved week on week. It's not normally day on day, it can be, but week on week. So I just used to write in my diary something about if I'd had a nightmare that night, or a flashback, or if I'd heard a loud noise and it had triggered me off, some trigger that I'd had. But also the pain levels. So you can score them out of 10 and say 10's really bad, 0 is no pain. And if you can score yourself each week, when you go to see the medical expert, which can be quite some months down the line if your recovery is too soon and you can't go and see the expert too soon, you can take that diary with you. It gives you that aide memoir of things and how you're recovering. But also you can look back. And I remember having some really down days where I thought, I'm never going to get myself back to work. How am I going to carry on? I had a young family. But actually looking back through that diary, I was like, well, actually, I haven't recovered that much in the last 2 weeks, but actually look where I was 3 weeks ago, and look where I am now. And actually now I'm doing a bit more. So pain diaries with serious injuries, I think, are really a really good thing to do.
I completely agree. And apologies if you did cover this, but it's evidentially it's great as well, because if you do end up in a position where you're having to serve formal witness statements in the litigation, then that kind of information and evidence to have is hugely beneficial when you're drafting, because you've got contemporaneous evidence. This is what I suffered. It's very hard for a defendant barrister or, you know, their legal reps to suggest you didn't go through this when it's all written there in a diary. So yeah, I think that's really good advice.
And also, if you feel like you don't, something quite personal to you, and you don't feel that you want to tell your solicitor at the early outset, you can write it in your diary and give your diary to your solicitor. You know, clients, it affects everybody in lots of different ways. And yeah, I think it's a really good, it helps us to prepare that witness statement, which I don't really like doing witness statements. I don't know if you do, but they take forever, don't they?
They take
and you've got to be so careful, because that's if you do go to trial, that's what your main evidence is factored on. So you've got to make sure you get all the details. Be really careful. I always say to clients about social media.
Yeah.
Because I've had a client years and years ago that said, this was before really social media really was a big thing, and that was when defendants would take surveillance evidence. So that was something that we don't really have that happen that much anymore, because social media is more the way of defendants looking. But don't just think when you're making a claim that the defendants' insurers aren't going to look up you and see what you do in your spare time. So if you go out and say, I can't do any gardening, and you're captured on a social media cutting your grass that's 1 acre, then that's the sort of thing you need to tell your solicitor about. So that can go in your witness statement and say, well, actually, I don't normally do this, but I did it. I felt awful afterwards, had to go in and lie down for an hour and take some painkillers. But just make sure you're honest, because honesty is so important in making a claim, isn't it?
Yeah, because defendants or their insurance companies are hugely incentivized now to try and establish any dishonesty they can on the part of the claimant, because there are cost incentives for the defendants to do that. So it does mean that now more than ever that that's what they're trying to do. It's a huge objective for them to try and undermine the claimant's credibility, try and pick out any inconsistencies, and that's where that's a huge part of our job, really, isn't it? Making sure that the evidence is consistent, making sure that the client understands that the defendant will be looking at those kind of things, because we need to give as much context as we can to what they're going through. Because, like you say, a video of them doing one particular task might, in isolation, look contrary to what the expert evidence is saying they can do.
And they'll use anything to discredit a claimant, won't they?
We need to be making sure that we're explaining, that they might have had to rest all day to then perform that task and then rest all day
and
afterwards.
It's quite hard to try and explain that to a client, but not wanting to make them fearful of what they do. And clients, you don't want them to become paranoid about that. But, in the days of surveillance operatives, when that was much more of a thing, people saying there's someone outside and they've got a camera and it's peering through my hedge, and you're like, are you sure? And clients, and then you watching hours and hours of video, and actually there's nothing on it. It's just your client going about their normal everyday life, not doing anything, but it's done to make them feel nervous, isn't it? And to rumble them and intimidate them,
make them accept a lower offer. And but I think it's still rife, the defendant surveillance operations, but I think it probably speaks to the work we do, that we haven't had surveillance footage come in on a case at least 5 years, I think, if not more. But it's a very real risk, and that is a whole aspect that they need legal advice and support on. And that's only going to get worse with social media, with AI coming in. I think it's so easy now to do a background check on anyone. Through AI, you can find out a lot of information about individuals, and insurance companies will have ways and means of doing that.
But if you think when we contact you to do your witness statement, if you think you've done something, I always say to a client, just tell me now, just be honest. If you've done something that you don't think you should have been doing, let's just put it in your statement, because then you can explain that you tried to do it but you couldn't, and you felt awful afterwards. But as long as we know there's no hidden surprises, is there, at the end?
We don't want them to be scared to tell us about positive steps they've taken in their recovery, and the fact that they're actually now more able than they used to be. We don't want them to become entrenched in kind of this kind of suffering because to support or to do what they think supports their claim. It's not about that at all. But yeah, we've gone off on a bit of a tangent there.
We have, haven't we?
Yeah.
So what do we think that clients can expect from us then?
Well, so in terms of actually contacting us, I hope that we're not scary. You know, that we
are human beings.
Yeah, and you know, we've been doing this a long time. I think we were adding it up between us 45 years between us.
Oh, you must be older than me then.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I rounded my bit up. So. Yeah, we've been doing this a long time, and we do it because we love helping people. That's, you know...
We're really passionate, aren't we? I just absolutely love my job.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that some days it's not really, really stressful.
Yeah.
And we do sometimes have a battle with defendants, insurers, but it's the most rewarding job. I'm so glad I chose this as my career.
Yeah.
And our team is a small team, but it's a great team. We've got great people that will listen to clients and speak to them, and we will help as many people as we possibly can. Yeah,
and the whole team's invested in our clients. You know, we all want what's best for our clients, and when we do get a good result, it's a team result, and we kind of celebrate it together. And I guess we probably don't do it enough, where we actually take stock and look at the client we have at the end of the case and look at how they were at the beginning. I mean, I know we do that as part of the process, but that's actually
but that's evident
on a human level
when clients say, when they fill in a survey at the end and they talk to you about what's happened, and then you get some fantastic reviews, and it just makes the job even more rewarding, doesn't it? Just to get those and know that how appreciated you are, and hope that you'll help them on their way and they're prepared for the rest of their life ahead of them. But I don't suppose there's many people that can say I'm a personal injury lawyer and I've been in a serious car accident myself, and I know what you're going through. But I really do understand what people go through, and just get in touch with us. Yeah, and I've witnessed it in the work you do, and the relationships you built with your client and the feedback you get from them. It's amazing. So thanks. Compliment from the boss there. This is part of your appraisal, by the way, if you didn't know. Okay. So I think in summary we'd just say, if you are in need of a lawyer after an accident, and you don't know where to turn or what to do, our recommendation would be to go local. Wherever you are, try and find a specialist that really knows their stuff, and and can get out to you, can get to the places they need to get to do whatever needs doing to support your claim. And hopefully, like us, they won't be scary. They won't be charging you anything up front. They won't be looking at their watch. And if they can help you, then great. They'll be able to do it on a no-win, no fee. They'll get you any interim payments, any rehab treatment you need, and hopefully help set you up for life, to try and recover after the trauma you've been through, and help you move forwards. I think that sums it up, really. I mean, really add to that. From all my podcast experience, I'm pretty sure this was a really good ending. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thank you. See you next time. Thank you.
Any additional guides and insights we've mentioned today will be available on our website. We hope you found this episode insightful. If you would like to discuss anything further on this subject, then please do get in touch with our website, www.ellisonsolicitors.com. Please don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on our social channels to keep up to date with the latest news and insights. Any information shared on this podcast was accurate at the time of recording. However, we advise speaking to your usual Ellison's advisor to make sure there hasn't been any changes since. Thank you very much to Punch Studios for producing this podcast series.